Well, I was doing some research on the Xfinity Series for Joe Gibbs Racing. They have a bunch of drivers. And then the news got announced that Shane Van Gisbergen's 2024 schedule had indeed been released by Trackhouse and the team he will be racing for in Xfinity. Those are your two big news topics today. Yesterday, we talked about Jimmy Johnson's new crew chief and Cody Ware being reinstated by NASCAR. Today, we expected the Joe Gibbs Racing news. We did not expect the Shane Van Gisbergen. I mean, this news had to come at some point because we knew that he was racing in 2024. We just didn't know which races he was racing in. Well, now we know. So let's start off with that news topic. Big news today. New Zealand superstar, or former Australian supercars superstar. He's from New Zealand, I should state. Shane Van Gisbergen has joined the NASCAR world. We already knew that. Made his first ever NASCAR start back in July of 2023. Well, I guess it's still July, or it's still 2023. So July of this year, back in July, SVG made his first NASCAR start at the Chicago Street Race. How did he do in that race? Oh yeah, he won. So 1-for-1 to start off his NASCAR career. Not only his NASCAR career, his NASCAR Cup Series career. There was a lot of excitement around him that weekend, a lot of hype, wondering when he was going to come back to the NASCAR world, and it didn't take long. I think it was about a month later. He came back for the Indianapolis road course, finished in the top 10 there. Also ran a Truck Series race at IRP, his first oval start in NASCAR. And he had caught the NASCAR fever, whatever you want to call it, and he decided to actually leave supercars, what he has done great at in Australia. He's won, I think, 3 championships there, has won 80 or so races there. He decided to leave Australia, everything he knew, everything he had built his career to, and has decided to move to the U.S. and become a NASCAR driver. Now, obviously, that Cup success was very quick, very early on, about literally the earliest you can have it. And so when they announced that he was going to be coming over to the U.S. and that he was going to be a part of a developmental deal with Trackhouse, I was wondering how they were going to split it up. Trucks, Cup, Xfinity, all of that. I assumed a part-time Cup schedule, but I didn't know how many Xfinity truck races. But I didn't think that they'd give him a full-time schedule, to be honest, just because of how harsh the transition would be. Now, once again, SVG is a top-tier driver. It's just that when you move from Australia to the U.S., I don't think it matters who you are. That is a big life transition, and it's also a completely different time zone, completely different everything. But SVG is running a full-time schedule next year. He's going to be running 7 Cup races, which we'll list in a minute. But here's the big thing. He's going to be racing a full-time Xfinity Series schedule with Kaulig Racing in the number 97 car. Kaulig Racing, for those of you who do not know, for those of you in Australia and New Zealand who may not keep up with NASCAR, Kaulig Racing is a very competitive Xfinity team. SVG will have the opportunity at race wins in the Xfinity Series. They've won races over the years with multiple drivers. They made multiple championship fours. They have a competitive lineup as well with AJ Allmendinger back in one of their Xfinity cars, I should state. And that's another guy who's actually great at road courses. So seeing SVG and AJ Allmendinger compete for the win as teammates in the Xfinity Series, that is going to be fun. But seriously, though, that is a very competitive team. Very good for him to learn with Kaulig of all teams. So I think that's going to be a great experience for him because, first of all, he's going to get to learn every single type of NASCAR track on an oval. He's going to start off the season at a super speedway at Daytona. He's going to go see short tracks like Martinsville, Bristol. He's going to learn some intermediate racing like Las Vegas, Texas, Kansas. And then he's also going to, have some experience on tracks that he's going to be better suited at, like the road courses, Circuit of the Americas, Watkins Glen, Sonoma, all that. So SVG will be running full-time in the Xfinity Series with Kaulig. As I said, Kaulig is a very competitive team. I expect him on the road courses at least to be competing, to be running well. But SVG is going to be fighting for an Xfinity Series championship next year full-time. We'll see how he does. It's going to be interesting to see how he does in the Xfinity car because that Xfinity car is much different than the Cup car. The Cup car is much more similar to the Australian supercars from what I've read and heard, is that car, the Cup Series car, is much more similar to what he knows, but the Xfinity car is going to be a completely different car, different story, different gearbox, different a lot more different with the Xfinity car. So I'm going to be curious to see early in the season, how is he going to adjust to that different car? But I still would expect him to run well at the road courses at least. But we'll see. So we'll see. As for his Cup schedule, SVG, as I said earlier in this video, will be running 7 races in the Cup Series this year, and it's a wide variety of tracks, actually. We're going to see Circuit of the Americas, which is going to be at the end of March, which is the road course in Austin, where F1 also runs. He's going to run both Talladega races in April and October. He's going to be running the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte, which is an intermediate track, 1.5 mile oval. That is the longest race distance-wise in the NASCAR calendar. He's going to be defending his race win at the Chicago Street Race on July 7th. He's also going to be racing another road course at Watkins Glen in September during the NASCAR playoffs. And he's going to get some more intermediate experience at Las Vegas Motor Speedway during the NASCAR playoffs at the end of October. So a wide variety of tracks on that schedule. No short tracks on the schedule, though. I do wish that he had a short track there, but he is getting a few road courses. He's getting a couple intermediates, which I think is a big thing, because the intermediate tracks are, or they at least used to make up the majority of the schedule. That was like where you had to do good if you wanted to be competitive in NASCAR, if you wanted to fight for wins, fight for championships, and make the playoffs, you had to run well at those tracks. Trackhouse is going to give him a good enough car. Trackhouse has made the playoffs the last couple of years. They've won races the last couple of years with multiple drivers. Ross Chastain, obviously SVG himself, and then Daniel Suarez as well. So if SVG can quickly adapt, or not even quickly, if he can just at some point in the next, let's call it 3 years, adapt to those intermediate tracks, to the ovals, and run well, he'll have himself a NASCAR future. So I think getting him as much experience on the ovals as possible is a good thing. Having him learn the super speedways is a good thing. The super speedway races are a little chaotic. They're crazy. Big wrecks happen. He may take a big hit. Just warning you. Well, honestly, if he takes a big hit, it's going to be the Xfinity Series. That series is a little bit more chaotic. But anyways, that is all for SVG for now. He has a new sponsor. Well, Trackhouse has a new sponsor, WeatherTech. I think I showed you the 97's paint scheme earlier. They're also going to sponsor Zane Smith in the Cup Series as well. He will be in the number 71 car. So that's all for Trackhouse right now, all on the Chevrolet camp for Xfinity and Cup. So just to wrap things up, SVG will be running a full-time schedule in the Xfinity Series in 2024. And then also will run 7 races in the Cup Series. Now, as for more Xfinity news, this was going to be the main headliner today, but instead it's taking, the second tier, the backup, P2, back seat, whatever you want to call it. Joe Gibbs Racing this morning announced its Xfinity Series lineup for the future. There's going to be 4 cars. Now, those 4 cars will consist of a couple of full-time guys, or 2, I should say. 2 cars will have full-time guys. 2 cars will have part-time guys. And there's a lot of schedule splitting that I'm not sure what that schedule split is. Let's talk about the full-time guys first. Car number 18 will be driven by Sheldon Creed. Sheldon Creed, of course, has raced for RCR in the Xfinity Series the past 2 years. Has yet to get that first win, but remember, came really close at Martinsville last fall and almost made the championship 4 if he were to win that race. But there was a lot of improvement that second year compared to that first year. I think he improved his average finishing position by 4 positions. He had more top 5s, more top 10s, more laps led. Almost every statistical category was an improvement on year 2 versus year 1. And then obviously we knew this news because his now former teammate Austin Hill leaked it after they had a run-in at Martinsville. So woo, I can't wait to see what happens when they get on the track next to each other next year. That'll be something. Now, as for the second full-time car, that will be the number 81. They are bringing that number back in the Xfinity Series, and it will be driven by Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith's an interesting story because last year he was at Kaulig Racing. He did win a race last year, actually, with Kaulig. Made the Xfinity Series playoffs, finished top 10 in the points, I believe. And I thought he was going to be at Kaulig, but then all of a sudden it was like he's looking elsewhere. He's trying to get out of that Kaulig contract, and he got out of it. And now he's back in the Toyota family, I should specify, and back at Joe Gibbs Racing, or back with the Toyota. He's now at Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't know if he was there before, but he was previously at a Toyota team. with KBM. I think he had driven some races for Sam Hunt Racing in the Xfinity Series. Well, now he's back in a Toyota. He is with Joe Gibbs Racing now. He's going to be full-time. I expect him to be competitive. I expect both those guys to be competitive. They've shown it before. As I said, Chandler Smith has won an Xfinity race. Sheldon Creed, he may not have won, but he's come very close a lot, and he's bound to break through. And also, he almost made the championship for last year. So, Joe Gibbs Racing, a very competitive team on the Cup Series level, on the Xfinity Series level. They're championship threats every year. I expect them to do that once again. I expect these two drivers to be competing for race wins at the very least, making the playoffs, competing for a championship. So those are your full-time guys. Let's go to the two part-time cars because there is a wide variety of what's going on here. The number 20 car is going to be split by a Cup Series driver, an active Cup Series driver, John Hunter Nemechek. Of course, John Hunter Nemechek last year with Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series won 7 races, won the regular season championship, and made the championship 4. Ultimately, he fell short, but still an outstanding season for him in the 20 car. Well, he returns to that 20 car. The other driver in that car, if you didn't know this, I spoiled it for you in yesterday's video. Joe Gibbs spoiled it a couple weeks ago at one of the Washington Commanders games. Eric Almirola will be in that car. Eric Almirola actually used to be a part of Joe Gibbs Racing. I think he used to be a Toyota driver. Well, he's coming back. So remember last year he announced that he'd be stepping away from full-time Cup Series racing. He'd be leaving Stewart-Haas Racing. Well, he's found something else. He's going to be going back to the Xfinity Series on a part-time basis. I don't know what the schedule is, but Almirola is back in the Xfinity Series. He's going to be in that 20 car, splitting the ride with John Hunter Nemechek. Now, also, something interesting that I feel like I should add. Eric Almirola has been in the Xfinity Series recently. Remember last year he ran a race at Sonoma. What happened at that race at Sonoma? He won. So Almirola, while his Cup career did not end particularly well with the results, and that was, Stewart-Haas Racing's kind of sucked the past few years, so not all on Almirola, but Almirola still got some competitiveness in him. He's still got some speed, and it showed. So Almirola, very possible for him to be competitive, competing for wins in that 20 car. Now we go to the number 19 car, and this is where we've just got a lot going on here. The 19 is going to be split by 4 guys: Ryan Truex, William Sawalich. Every time I see his name, I want to say Sandwich. I'm sorry, but I see this S-A and then I see the itch, and it makes me think sandwich. I'm sorry. I always want to say sandwich. William Sawalich. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Joe Graff Jr. and Taylor Gray. Now, Ryan Truex has a history with Joe Gibbs Racing. He actually won an Xfinity Series race on his part-time schedule last year at Dover. One of him and his brother Martin Truex Jr.'s 50 home tracks, of course. But yes, Ryan Truex is back at Joe Gibbs Racing. I'm excited to see how he'll do, actually, because, he had that win last year at Dover. I'm curious to see if he can really back it up, go compete for more wins next year, maybe get a win or 2 next year, maybe get promoted to that full-time ride. As for Sawalich, he is a very young driver. He's been running in ARCA. He's run, I think, a couple of Truck Series races. Yeah, he's actually run 6 Truck Series races, has 3 top 10s, but he has been running ARCA for the majority of his career. He does not turn 18 until next October, so he cannot run the big track. So I would assume he's going to be the guy on the short tracks. Martinsville, Bristol, Richmond. The short tracks will be where Sawalich runs. But once again, there's no confirmed schedule, so I may not know anything. As for the other drivers, Joe Graff Jr. Yeah, Joe Graff Jr. has made some starts with Joe Gibbs Racing in the past. He's got 5 top 10s in his career in the Xfinity Series. No wins, nothing really outstanding on the resume, but he's returning back for some races in the Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing. And then that last driver will be Taylor Gray. Taylor Gray has run in the Truck Series the past couple of years. Ran 20 of the 23 races last year, had 3 top 5s, 6 top 10s. No wins, but still, a few top 10s, a few top 5s. Finished 15th in the points. No Xfinity starts, no Cup starts or anything like that, but he's going to get his share of drives as well. So there's a lot going on at Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series. We've got 2 full-time cars. you know, that's normal for them to have two guys compete for a championship, getting some race wins. And, you know, we see a part-time, like an all-star car sometimes, you know, the 54. We'd see Kyle Busch in there. We'd see Denny Hamlin there for Darlington. You know, they'd throw Ty Gibbs in there back when he was part-time. Throw some other guys in that car. You know, that's your all-star car, right? Well, now they've got two cars part-time, and there's just a lot going on. We got one with a seasoned veteran who is no longer full-time, just looking to win some races, get some trophies on his cabinet. And then we got John Hunter Nemechek, who's still in the learning process, but now he's full-time Cup at Legacy Motor Club. But, you know, he still wants to run Xfinity, get that, continue to learn. And then we got the fourth car, which is like it's like that scene in The Dark Knight. We've got three guys for two spots. Break the pool stick, throw it to them, make it quick. Maybe that's a bad example, but, you know, these four guys are very young. They have no long-term plans locked up. They are looking to prove themselves, lock up a future, so this is their opportunity. So, yeah, we got a bunch of young drivers we talked about today. We talked about Taylor Gray, Joe Graff Jr., William Sawalich, I almost said Sandwich again, Ryan Truex, Chandler Smith, Shane Van Gisbergen. We're talking about all the rookies and young drivers in NASCAR, right? Well, thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. I know we covered a lot today. There was a lot of information to process. We talked about like 7 drivers or 8, 9 drivers over 5 seats. That's a lot of information to process. If you didn't process it all, I'm sorry. I don't know what else I could have done differently. I apologize. But thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day. If you're in Australia, I don't know what time it is there right now, but if it's night, have a good night. If it's morning, have a good morning. If it's afternoon, have a good afternoon. And I'll see you guys in the next video.